Okay, this is Richard Howell from DPS Telecom. I'm going to go through a little bit of a guide today. And basically what I'm going to go over is how to troubleshoot a NetGuardian device failure alarm. Now, what that alarm basically means is that your teamon is no longer able to communicate with your NetGuardian. And there's a variety of reasons that can happen. The NetGuardian can obviously fail, but there's also some other things that can happen, like configuration changes, changes to your network firewall, and other things like that that can prevent you from being able to successfully pull your NetGuardian with your teamon. Okay, so first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to log into monitor mode, because this is going to show me my alarm that I'm talking about. Okay, so now that we're logged in, basically you can see that I've got a NetGuardian labeled Fresno NetGuardian 832AG5. And you can see this device had some alarms come in earlier, but now all of a sudden we have a device failure. Now, maybe you don't notice that you have a device failure, but you'll notice that you aren't getting any alarms or change of state or anything like that from your NetGuardian, right? And you know the door has been opened or closed, or you know some things have been happening that should be reporting. So if you didn't notice it, make sure you go ahead and look and just confirm that you have a device failure. That will tell you that the teamon is saying, hey, I cannot pull this unit. So the first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and look at the NetGuardian itself and confirm that it should be properly configured in the teamon system. So first thing I'm going to do is go ahead and click on this edit button right here. This is going to take me to the edit interface. Okay, from here I'll be able to go ahead and look up my device in the teamon system. Now just a quick note, this device is configured under teamon LNX devices, so it is set up under our device modules. And the way I know that is under monitor. If I look at the port column here, this also corresponds to the group number, or if I right click on that device failure, hit details here, it will actually reference the port number right here as 1,000 or higher. So anything that has a port number of 1,000 or higher is going to be a device module. Anything lower than that is actually going to be configured in the teamon VM. Okay, and that will actually correspond to the job number that that device is pulled under. Okay, so going back here, I'm going to go to my devices, and basically I'm going to look up that NetGuardian in here. So I know it's called Fresno NetGuardian. Okay, so you can see I've got my device here. So I only have one of them, but you may have more. That's fine. I'm going to go ahead and hit Edit Selected Devices. This is going to tell me a little bit of information about how the device is configured. So at first glance, you'll see that it may look like this device is configured correctly. At the top of the screen, it actually says Device Polling Enabled, and what that basically means is the teamon is trying to talk to the unit, but we know it's not successfully communicating with it because we have that device failure in the monitor screen. Okay, so I'm going to do a couple things here. First thing I'm going to do is I'm going to click Test DCP IP right here. What this is going to basically do is it's going to test your settings that you have configured for your device along with your IP address. So I'm going to go ahead and click that right now. Okay, so right away I can see something looks a little odd. We are able to ping the IP address, so that means there is something there on the network at that IP address. But for some reason it says it failed the DCP poll test. Now, usually what I recommend is doing this a couple times just to be sure you didn't have like one failed poll, because maybe if you have a lot of traffic or something going across your network, some of those polls may not go through. And normally we have retry mechanics anyways, so that wouldn't be a problem. So it looks like, yeah, we're still getting failed polls. So something is not configured correctly here. Now the good news is, because we do have the IP address set up, we can try to telnet into this IP address and access the NetGuardian directly to see if we maybe aren't correctly configured via unit ID or something like that. So, so we can do that through what's called the telnet interface, and I'll go ahead and do that now. I'm going to go ahead and open up a command prompt, and I'm just going to go ahead and telnet to that IP address. So it'll be telnet, the IP of the NetGuardian, 192.168.2.16. Now all of the, we call it the craft interface, and this interface is going to be on port 2002. Okay. So great. So it looks like I am connected to a NetGuardian because it has prompted me for a password. So I'm going to go ahead and log in there. And you can see once you log in, it actually tells you the model number and just further confirms that we are talking to a NetGuardian here. And so next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and go into this debug menu right here. So if I click D for debug, this is going to bring up what are called debug filters. And these are really useful for a variety of different things. In this particular case, I'm only going to look at one. I'm going to look at what's called DCP. Now DCP, you can see it's labeled here as well. This is just the protocol that we use to communicate with the NetGuardians. So it is our own internal proprietary protocol, so you don't need to understand too much about it. But you do need to know that it is a polling protocol. So the Teamon is actually going to poll your NetGuardian. It's going to send a request, and it's going to expect a response back. So what's nice is when we turn on this DCP debug, we should actually see the request come in from the Teamon, and then the response go out from the NetGuardian. So you can see here there's a lowercase d for DCP. Don't mix it up and type capital because that's for a different filter. So I'm going to do lowercase d, and you can see it actually turns on DCP debug right here. Now, what's nice about this is, I'm going to go ahead and move this over just a little bit, is I can actually hit the test button here while I have this telnet session open, and it will tell me what's going on here. So if I click test, you can see it's waiting for a response right here. It got a response from the ping, which we know is already accurate because we can access it from here as well. But it didn't get the poll response. That's what this error is basically telling us right here. And so let's see, looking at the debug here, I have not seen any traffic come into the NetGuardian yet. So there's one of two things that could be going on. I guess there's three possible reasons for that. The first possible reason would be there's a firewall in between the two units. So the Teamon and the NetGuardian may have a firewall that's preventing traffic from going across port 2001. So the DCP protocol does use UDP in order to send the request and also receive the response. So it is a UDP port 2001. And so I know that's not the problem in this case because I know these are directly connected to the same switch, so I'm not going to go through the trouble of troubleshooting a firewall. The second thing is if this port is not correct. So basically, if we're sending a packet to the wrong port that's configured in the NetGuardian, then the NetGuardian isn't going to have that port open, therefore it's not going to display anything here. Okay, so the third option is kind of the same thing. If you have your NetGuardian disabled as far as DCP polling goes, then it's not going to show any debug here as well because the NetGuardian is not configured to reply to a master at all, right? Or in this case, the Teamon. So let's go ahead and log directly into our NetGuardian because we want to see what the configuration looks like for that system. Okay, so it looks like, let me close these tabs over here. I'm going to go ahead and log into this guy. So, and just for you guys that are unsure, the password we logged into with the craft port is the same password we're going to use when we log into the web. Okay, so the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go to the edit interface right here, and then the system tab. Now, if you're debugging something like a NetGuardian 216G3 or a Temp Defender or anything that is in a product class that uses our newer chip, you'll notice the web interface is going to look similar, but you're still going to go to the system tab because that's where all your DCP settings are going to be. Okay, so right away I can see what the problem is. We actually had the right port. So it wasn't issue number 2, right? That's where you have the wrong port. What we actually had is we don't have the correct unit ID configured. And so if I go back to the Teamon, you can see here we actually have unit ID 1 configured in the Teamon. And so the unit ID is basically 1 through 255. But if you set it to 0, that's how you disable a NetGuardian from replying to polls at all. And this device right here, at some point was configured not to respond to DCP polling. So I can go ahead and fix that real easily. I'll just go ahead and put a 1 there. And just, again, you want to make sure that the DCP ID is the same number that you have configured in the Teamon, because what's going to happen is the Teamon's going to send a request out, and it's going to include that unit ID in the request. And if it doesn't send the right unit ID, the NetGuardian will not respond. Okay, so let's go ahead and Click submit here. So anytime you make changes on this configuration screen, the NetGuardian will prompt you to reboot the unit. So that's what we're seeing here. We have a reboot needed. So I'll just go ahead and reboot this guy from the web interface. And it should take about 15-20 seconds for this system to reboot. And then we'll be able to test that poll again. I'll most likely need to relog in over here as well. So we'll give this a second. Yeah, and if you are actually in front of the unit, one of the things you'll notice about the LEDs on the front of it while it's rebooting, those will actually flash all red, all green, and then you'll see them kind of dance around a little bit, and it should be very noticeable. That's kind of a nice little feature. If you're ever looking at like 2 or 3 NetGuardians and you're not sure which one is the one that you're rebooting, you can tell just right away by the front panel it's kind of flashing a lot more than anything else. Okay, this guy's probably done rebooting. Okay, perfect. So it's back up. And I can go ahead and log in just to confirm that we did change the unit ID, which I'm pretty sure we did. Yeah, so we confirmed that it is indeed unit ID 1, and it no longer says disabled here, right? That's the key. The NetGuardian was purposely not trying to respond to any type of polls. Okay, so now going back to our device edit screen, you can see here we're still showing the failed poll. Let me just go ahead and retry the test. And you can see now it's actually polling correctly. So that was basically our problem, is we didn't have the correct unit ID for that NetGuardian. Now I'm going to go back to this debug over here because we didn't actually get to see the polling in action. So I'm going to go ahead and reopen this right here. It's going to say I have a connection lost because I rebooted it. Okay, so I'm going to telnet back into this guy. This is the NetGuardian. Log in with the same user as the web interface. I'm going to go back into debug, and then I'm going to go back into lowercase DCP. Okay, so if I go ahead and you can see there's already traffic happening right now because the Tmon has already tried to re-pull this unit. And so you can see here we are now getting what it says is receive, and then it tells me the number of bytes received, and then we see a response and the number of bytes in that response, and that's periodically going to be showing up in this system. So you can see here's the traffic for the receive. This is what the Tmon sent as the request. And then right after that, you have the response that the NetGuardian sent. So this is how you can basically confirm the traffic on the NetGuardian itself. This is traffic in real time. Now this is actually polling very quickly because there's only 2 devices in this group, this device, and then there's another one that I haven't really shown you. If you have, say, a dozen devices or even 20 or 30 in a group, this traffic is going to show up much less often. And the reason why is the Tmon's going to go through each one of those devices in that group sequentially. Now let's just go ahead and log into monitor mode and check out our device failure alarm. Okay, so when I click on monitor mode, here in the COS alarms list, that the device failure came in at 2:34 and cleared at 2:48, which is about when we restarted that unit. And you can actually see right after it shows the unit restart. The unit reset alarms right here, and then the alarms that it detected afterwards. And it looks like a generator fail just came in as a clear as well. And so, again, there's a variety of reasons a NetGuardian may not be responding to a Tmon. And so if it is not configured with the correct unit ID, then you would expect to see a device failure like that. Okay, so I do want to show you one other situation that can cause a device failure alarm like that, that is a little bit different than what we did before. So, and it'll actually show the usefulness of this debug as well. So what I'm going to do is in my device, I'm actually just going to go ahead and set the wrong port here. So I'm going to set this to 2002. And what you're going to see is right away, it's going to actually fail a poll test. Now, the Tmon itself, is it like periodically going to check these settings and then update the background poller? So you can see right here it's still being polled, but it will eventually stop getting polled, and we'll be able to see the failed polls show up on this side as well. Okay, so if you guys have any other questions or need any more information, feel free to visit our website, dpstele.com, and we have a lot of resources on there and additional guides and things as well. Thanks. Bye.